الحمد لله رب العالمين نحمده سبحانه وتعالى حمدا كثيرا طيبا طاهرا دائما مباركا فيه ملء السماوات وملء الأرض وملء ما بينهما وملء ما شئت يا ربنا من شيء بعد. أهل الثناء والمجد أحق ما قال العبد وكلنا لك عبد. اللهم لا مانع لما أعطيت ولا معطي لما منعت ولا ينفع ذا الجد منك الجد. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه، بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الغمة وجاهد في الله حق الجهاد حتى أتاه اليقين. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على الحبيب المصطفى وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه ومن اهتدى بهديه وعمل بسنته إلى يوم الدين، وارض اللهم عنا معهم بفضلك وكرمك أرحم الراحمين اللهم آمين. I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the worlds, the creator of heavens and earth. I thank Allah for the blessings that He has bestowed upon each and every one of us, and I ask Allah to make us worthy of them all. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship save Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Allah's final prophet and messenger, the bearer of glad tidings, the teacher, the leader, the inspiration, Allah's favor upon us. I thank Allah for the gift of Muhammad. And I ask Allah to give us the strength to walk steadily in the footsteps of the beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to extend His blessings to the Prophet's family and companions and the men and women that adhere to their path. And I ask Allah to make us among them. Ameen. My dear brothers and sisters, I greet you with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One of the things that we used to do quite a bit when my children were young was stargazing. I know the last few years have brought so much ugliness to the world that many of us are not even paying attention to that anymore. Like, what is stargazing? Like, go to the backyard and then at night and look at the beautiful night sky in order to be inspired. I feel that there's so much of the beautiful things that we used to do that we stopped doing because we are in this survival mode as Muslims recently in the last few years. But I honestly feel like the only way to fight ugliness is by inspiring beautiful things in yourself and in the world around you. And so I am one of those people who could be called a space enthusiast. I love physics, I love science, I love stars, I love the constellations. I read about outer space all the time. And one of the things that, if you are into stargazing, or if you've ever done any stargazing in the past, which I strongly recommend that you do, one of the things that you notice right away is that there is this beautiful, typical constellations of stars that you see at night, especially here in the northern hemisphere. And if I asked you right now, what do you think is the estimate of the number of stars that you see at night? Most of you may not know the number. Why? Because there's so many stars in the universe. In fact, there is over 100 billion stars in the Milky Way, our galaxy alone. And you might ask, okay, how many stars in the universe then? In all of the observable universe, you know what the number is? 70 sextillion. You know what that is? It's 70 to the power of 23. And I know this is a very large number, it doesn't make any sense, but let me help you understand how big that is. There is 10 times more stars in the universe than all the sand particles on all of this earth, all of the deserts, all of the beaches. 10 times more stars than sand particles on this earth. When you go to the beach and you grab a handful of sand, that's a lot of sand in your hand, right? Now I want you to imagine that all the sand in the beach from edge to edge. Now imagine all the sand in all the beaches, all the sand in all the deserts on the face of this earth. There's more stars in the universe than all of that. The universe is enormously magnificent and an absolutely vast place. You know how many of those we actually see in the night sky when we go to those areas in Southern California, in the mountains, in Yosemite, whatever, when it's absolutely dark and you can actually see most of the stars? You know the absolute maximum number of stars that you will see is how many? 4,000. 4,000. Out of 70 to the power of 23. These are beautiful tidbits of truth that I personally enjoy. I don't know about you, but I enjoy this so much. And I learned so much about myself, about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the beautiful artist that painted this universe. I learned so much about science. And I get inspired by these things, right? When I understand my smallness, looking at the vastness of the universe, I realize how great Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is when this entire universe is just one of His many creations. When I see how small I am before Allah that created all of this, my sense of guilt about committing sins and crossing boundaries is ever heightened. But if I ask you today, what is the function of this massive universe? What is the wisdom behind all of this? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create something so vast? By the way, people might say, well, if there's life in the universe beyond us, we would have experienced that life. We would have seen that life. We would have encountered aliens. Let me tell you why it's impossible to see aliens scientifically. The closest star system to us is only 4 light years away. 4 light years away. Which means that it would take a space shuttle going at the speed of light 4 full years to get there. This is how vast the distance is. And that is the closest star to us. Now, we cannot travel with the speed of light, but we can travel, with a lot of speed. The maximum speed that we have with our technology today would allow a space shuttle to reach the Alpha Centauri, which is the closest star system to us, in 70,000 years. If you started today, you will get there after 70,000 years. The closest star system after that is about 250,000 years away. Which means that before humanity even came on this earth, if a space shuttle from the aliens traveled, headed to Earth, it has not arrived yet. Which means that it is impossible for us to actually experience life in the universe, per the letters of science. Okay? But does that mean Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create life elsewhere in the universe? How do we know? There is wisdom. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us in the Quran, when we look at the night sky, there is a dua that we say from Surah Al-Imran. رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Lord, not in vain have you created all of this. See the affirmation? I don't know why you created it. I don't know the wisdom behind it. But Lord, you would not create this in vain to protect us from the fire of hell. That's the dua that you say when you look at the stars, when you look at the night sky. So you and I know that there is wisdom. We may not know the wisdom, but what is it of the night sky that we experience every single night when we see it? The only thing that still remains? We used to use them for navigation and stuff like that, not anymore. We have avionics and we have very powerful instruments. We don't use the stars for navigation anymore. The one thing that we still use the stars for to this day, and that purpose will never end, you know what that is? It's enjoyment. We look at the stars to derive joy, to derive happiness, to derive beauty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, Allah knew that you and I would never understand the wisdom behind the creation of the universe, yet He still gave it to us as a gift, and He said, I want you to enjoy this. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do this? Because, as Rasulullah taught us, إِنَّ اللَّهَ جَمِيلٌ يُحِبُّ الْجَمَالِ. Allah is beautiful, and He likes beautiful things. He likes beauty. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His ultimate grace, He figured humanity could use a little beauty. Here's the night sky, enjoy it. إِنَّ اللَّهَ جَمِيلٌ يُحِبُّ الْجَمَالِ. Allah is beautiful, and He loves beauty. It's interesting that this statement actually is mentioned in a bigger hadith, where a man came and asked the Prophet ﷺ, about arrogance, and Rasulullah said to him, لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر. If there is an ounce's weight, an atom's weight of arrogance, of kibr in your heart, you will not enter Jannah. So the man asked him, Ya Rasulullah, إن الرجل يحب الملبس الحسن والنعل الحسن. We love to wear beautiful clothes and beautiful shoes. Would that be considered arrogance? And Rasulullah said to him, that's not arrogance. إِنَّ اللَّهَ جَمِيلٌ يحب الجمال. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beautiful and He loves beauty. وإنما الكبر بطر الحق وغمط الناس. The definition of arrogance is when you reject the truth and you belittle people. So every time someone brings you the truth and you keep rejecting it because your ego is not allowing you to accept it, that is arrogance. And when you continue to put people down and you belittle people and you say to them, I'm better than you, in words or action, that is arrogance. In other words, you wearing nice clothes or driving a nice car, if it's halal, living in a nice place, enjoying nice things in life, that is not arrogance. Rather, it is an expression of beauty. You're enjoying the beauty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created in this world. Speaking of outer space, and I know that you're wondering right now, why is he talking about this subject today? All right, just hear me out, all right? I'll get to my point. Just give me a few more seconds. Something incredible happened this month of April, by the way, that many people, because again, they're so bombarded with the ugly news coming out of war and carnage and death and genocide, we're not paying attention to some beautiful things that are still happening in the world. This month of April, just a few days ago, NASA launched the Artemis II mission. What is the purpose of the Artemis II mission? It's a very interesting purpose. It's a test mission to basically slingshot around the moon and then come back to the Earth in order to test the process so that there's going to be more and more Artemis missions. And ultimately, it's about bringing man back onto lunar surface. You know, the last time we've been on the moon was when? 1972, Apollo 17. Those of you who follow the history, it's been 50 years plus when man was last walking on the moon. And then here we are again, 50 years later, dedicating budgets, millions of dollars, strapping these 4 adventurous people to a rocket, launching it into outer space so that people are able to land on the moon once again. Why do we do this? Why do we do this as a human race? And I enjoy this so much. I think that NASA is the best thing that the federal government spends money on. Why do we keep doing this as the human race? There isn't countries in outer space that we need to occupy. There are no resources that we need to acquire. We're not going to be, mining for iron and copper on the moon and bringing that back to Earth. It's going to be way too expensive to do anything like that. There is no culture out there to manipulate. There are no colonies. Why are we doing this? Because that is the essential sense of adventure and discovery, our sense of wonder as the human race, wanting to push the boundaries and understand the universe and experience its beauty and feel humbled before what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. It's interesting though, that same federal government that launched the Artemis II is also the same federal government that continues to work with the Zionists today to do a genocide in Gaza, to perform ethnic cleansing in southern Lebanon, and to continue to attack Iran. See the beauty and the ugliness at the same time? I need to talk about this today because we keep talking about very painful things all the time. And sometimes we also have to highlight some of the beautiful things that are still happening in the world, brothers and sisters. It's almost like we as a nation are standing at the crossroads. We're standing at the cusp of these great upheavals. It's either that into the future we become a nation of humility and a nation of discovery, a nation of science, of supporting education, a nation of welfare, a nation of religious freedom, a nation of truly helping people that need our help, or we can become a genocidal nation. We can become a maniacal nation. We can become a nation of lewdness and promiscuity and sickness and profanity and foulness. And you know what? Perhaps it's our Muslim community that can help America make that decision. What if it rests on our shoulders to decide for them? What if your moral compass as a Muslim, your understanding of what is beautiful vis-a-vis what is ugly, what if that is what empowers you as a Muslim to help the rest of the society decide which direction America needs to take? I know that we don't talk about these subjects, brothers and sisters, but sometimes it's essential. You cannot understand what beauty is unless you understand ugliness. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about ugliness, because even we Muslims, when we don't have the discipline, when we don't have self-control, we are also capable of doing pretty ugly things. The same activists that continue to shed tears for Palestine and for Gaza for over 2 years are now 100% silent when southern Lebanon and Iran are being attacked. Why? Because the victim in this particular case is what? Is Shia. So easy to write them off just because they are Shia. When did it ever happen or occur to us as Muslims that we remove Shias from the faith? Last time I checked, the Ja'faris and the Zaydis were part of Ahlul Qibla with the understanding of the majority of the scholars of Islam. To this day, that continues to be the case. Why do we focus so much on ugliness? Brothers and sisters, if you shed less tears on a woman that lost her child and she's weeping, just because that woman is Shia, that is ugliness. That is absolutely ugly. If you pray less because someone died only because that person followed a different madhab or a different sect, that is the definition of ugliness. But it's not just about sectarianism. We as Muslims sometimes, and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, the majority of Muslims are on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But sometimes we practice that ugliness when imams come on these pulpits and they make a declaration that women in the Muslim community, with their talent and their strength and their ability to support, their men counterparts, are somehow excluded completely. And they are not allowed to participate in the affairs of their own community. That is ugliness. When our children come to us and say, "Hey, Dad, I would like to become a poet," what is it that most fathers are likely to respond with? We would think that number one, they lost their minds. And number two, they need an intervention, right? And number three, we sit them down and we start talking some sense into them. Habibi, I understand, you love poetry, you like to write poetry, you would like to be an artist, but that's not going to feed your family. It's something that you can do on the side, but you need to find yourself a legitimate career. Of course, when they say legitimate career, they mean two things, right? It's either that you become a doctor or that's it. That's it. We've reduced all human activities to those two things. When our children come to us and they say, we would like to become filmmakers, we would like to become artists, we would like to produce nasheed, halal, beautiful, inspiring music, we always cancel this 100% and say, we're not going to have this conversation. Now let me tell you this, civilizations are created by philosophers and thinkers and artists and poets. Civilizations are supported by scientists and engineers and medical doctors. Of course, we can't support and maintain a civilization without all these professions. But who creates a civilization? Who creates a culture upon which a civilization hinges and thrives? It's thinkers and artists and people who you and I might consider to be madmen. These are all forms of ugliness that continue to hurt our community to this day. And let me, say a quick message to my young brothers and sisters who are still trying to decide on their careers. They're in high school and they're trying to decide what to do with their college. Don't ever let anyone make you believe that when you choose what you love, what you're passionate about, that somehow you're going to be poor and marginal. Don't let people make you believe that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that provides. He is the source of rizq. If you have love and passion for what you do, and you feel that you're making a difference in the world, you're not just some random engineer sitting in a cubicle suffering, waiting for 5 o'clock to come so you can get out of there or go home. Or some emergency room doctor who has mental health issues because they absolutely hate what they do. Rather, someone that is passionate about their career, about what they do, they consider it to be beautiful. And it beautifies the world around them. I promise you, and I guarantee you, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide you to find the way to monetize it. To find the way to make this actually work for you and to support you and to support your family. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our good deeds and answer our prayers and help us perpetuate more beautiful things in this world that would quell and squash that which is ugly. Raise your hands, brothers and sisters, and speak to Allah Azza wa Jal from the heart. Ud'u Allah wa antum mu'minuna bil ijaba. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وقائد الغر الميامين محمد الصادق الوعد الأمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وارض اللهم عنا معهم بفضلك وكرمك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم آمين. My dear brothers and sisters, today I talk about something that we rarely address here on this pulpit, which is that which is beautiful. We talk about beauty today. Rasulullah taught us sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Inna Allah jamilun yuhibbul jamal. Allah is beautiful and He loves beautiful things. And I use examples today that highlights, things that are beautiful that we need to be practicing in our lives, but also I highlighted some of the ugly things as well. There is a story that I wanted to share with you as I conclude this khutbah that happened from the time of the great conquests, when the city of Jerusalem was brought to the fold of Islam at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu. There's two accounts of the story. There's the Muslim account and then there's the Byzantine/Roman account, and I studied both accounts because I wanted to see how they saw us as well. I wanted to see how the patriarch of Jerusalem, right, his name was Sophronius, how he saw Umar radiallahu anhu when he arrived, right? So the accounts are very, very similar, by the way. The accuracy is astounding. So Umar radiallahu anhu arrives because Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, the Muslim general, asked him to come. Why did Abu Ubaidah ask him to come? Because Abu Ubaidah put Jerusalem under siege. There was no army to protect it except for a very small division that reported directly to the patriarch. And the patriarch is now trying to agree with the Muslims on terms. And he's like, I'm just asking you, please don't destroy the city, don't destroy the churches, don't rape and enslave the women. So Abu Ubaidah said, wait, what are you talking about? We would never do that. This is not us. This is not us. We wouldn't do that in any other city. We certainly would not do that to Jerusalem. So he said, so you're going to enter the city without any bloodshed? He said, absolutely not. No bloodshed whatsoever. He says, okay, I can't trust you, but I will trust the Khalifa himself if he comes. I will only give the keys of Jerusalem to Umar ibn al-Khattab. And of course, it would have taken weeks for Umar to come. So Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah came up with this idea. He asked Umar's cousin, who really looked like him, remember his name, Umar's cousin? Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu. He asked Khalid and he says, we're going to get you to dress like Umar and wear nice clothes and be like on a nice sofa, and we're going to try to convince the patriarch Sophronius that you are Umar. Khalid said, okay, fine. Sophronius came outside, and the minute he saw him, he says, this is not Umar ibn Khattab. And he said, why are you saying this? Well, Umar, I heard about Umar, he's a humble man. He would not be addressed like this. They waited 3 weeks for Umar to actually arrive to Jerusalem. And that is when Sophronius, the patriarch of Jerusalem, by the way, was an Arab Christian, so he understood Arabic and he knew how to converse with the Arabs. So they opened the gates of Jerusalem, and Sophronius is walking outside, and there's this beautiful entourage, all these soldiers with their chainmail and their helmets and their swords and their shields, and there's only one camel in their midst. And then there's an elderly man sitting on the camel, and another elderly man holding the rope of the camel. And then they looked at him, and Umar is right over there. So he's being carried on his sofa by his servants, and they placed him right in front of the camel. He naturally assumed that the person that was riding the camel is Umar. So he says, are you Umar? He says, no, Umar is right over there. Umar was the man that was actually holding the rope. And he asked him, you are the commander of the faithful? You're the emperor? He says, yes. And he says, why are you standing and this person is riding your camel? He says, well, I can only afford one camel. He is my servant. So sometimes he rides, sometimes I ride. And it just so happened that it is his turn right now. This is how simple the world was for Umar radiallahu anhu. And Umar looks at him and he's all dressed up and he has gold chains and everything. And he says, you know, take off these things, take off your cloak, walk with me man to man. And Umar walked with Sophronius. This is from the Byzantine accounts, by the way. He walked with Sophronius into the city of Jerusalem. The army is still outside, right? And then he says, take me to the birthplace of Jesus. This is what Umar requested, radiallahu anhu. Take me to the birthplace of Jesus. So he takes him to the church of the Holy Sepulchre, if you've ever been there. I visited that church, by the way. And they enter into the church, and out of respect and courtesy, the patriarch says to Umar radiallahu anhu, I don't mind, by the way, if both of us pray here. You pray the Muslim way, and I pray the Christian way, and then we maintain that peace between us. And Umar said, absolutely not. You don't understand. If I prayed here, my followers would turn this church into a masjid. Find me a place that you are willing to lose. So he takes him to the property of the church outside. He says, trust me, they will convert it into a masjid. Find me like a road or something that cannot be claimed. And Umar radiallahu anhu prayed on the street. And exactly what he predicted. Later on, they converted that road into the masjid that is now actually called Masjid Umar bin Khattab. And I also prayed there. If you're ever blessed to visit, the city of Jerusalem, you have to follow, these beautiful, important sites, right? And then Umar asked him something really strange. He says, take me to the Temple Mount. This is the place where the Haykal Sulaiman, right? The temple of Sulaiman was, and the Romans obviously completely obliterated it. They had turned it into a complete dump, into those landfills. It's just covered with garbage. And Umar radiallahu anhu starts tearing up. This is from the Roman accounts. And Sophronius asked him, why are you crying? And he says, this is a sacred place where the temple of Sulaiman alayhi salam was. This is where our beloved Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came for Isra and Mi'raj. And now you guys turned it into a dump. And he asked the soldiers to enter the city, and their first task was to do what? Was to clean the Temple Mount. And they removed centuries of garbage that piled up on top of each other until the actual hill, became clear. And that is later on when Umar radiallahu anhu prayed, and that area became Qubbatul Sakhra, became the Dome of the Rock. Why am I telling you this story? Because all the Christian inhabitants of Jerusalem, they're watching this. And the next few days, there is mass conversion of Christians that come to Islam because of the beauty that they saw from the Muslims as they entered into their city. And one of them in particular, his name is Haywa, a Yemeni Christian that had already migrated into the city of Jerusalem decades ago. He saw this and he decided that, I want to become like this man over there. And he heard Sophronius, the patriarch of Jerusalem, literally says to Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, you remind me of Jesus. He said to Umar, you remind me of Jesus. Now imagine the Christians hearing this, mass conversion to Islam. And one of them was Haywa, who raised his children as Muslim, and one of them became one of the tabi'een. His name is Raja ibn Haywa radiallahu anhu. Raja ibn Haywa, just like all Muslim kids, grew up memorizing the Quran, learning the Hadith. He traveled to Medina, he studied with the Sahaba, he became a tabi'i, right? But one day he came to his father Raja, the Muslim convert, and he says to him, Father, I feel unfulfilled. He says, what do you mean? You've become a great scholar. He says, there's something else that I would love to do. He says, what? He says, I love architecture. I want to build masajid, and I want to beautify the masajid on the outside, on the inside. His father told him, are you sure you're doing extremely well as a scholar? Why do you have to do this? This is my passion. Father, will you let me do this? And that's when he started his career as an architect. And now he's building houses for the wealthy people, the inhabitants of Jerusalem. He is building and masajid. He's even being hired by the Christians to remodel their churches. Only men and women that the teachings of Muhammad SAW produced would act like this. This miracle, that generation is an absolute miracle, right? One day he gets a call from the Khalifa himself, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, the Khalifa of the Umayyads. And he says, I need advice from you. So he says, okay, let me go see what the Khalifa wants. The Khalifa had captured Abdurrahman ibn al-Ash'ath, who is the leader of this rebellion. And he doesn't know what to do with him. He feels that he's sincere, but he's also a rebel. Should I execute him or imprison him or let him go? So he asks for the most beautiful man he knows, Raja ibn Haywa. He says, give me advice. One sentence Raja gave him. He says, إن الله عز وجل أعطاك ما تحب من الظفر فأعطيه ما يحب من العفو. Allah has given you the victory that you desire. Now give him the forgiveness that he desires. And it is as a result of this that he forgave and gave immunity to all the rebels. And that's when he fell in love with Raja. And he says, I would like for you to become my personal advisor. And it was not easy for the scholars to work for the Umayyads, by the way. The Umayyads had already obliterated Medina. They've attacked, the Kaaba. They've murdered Imam Hussein. There's all this tension between the Ummah and the Umayyads. But Raja figured, I need to be there in the halls of power. I need to be influencing from the inside. With Khalifa himself, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, he advised him to build Masjid Qubbat al-Sakhra, which is the Dome of the Rock. And he says to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, دعنا نبني مسجدا لله يكون ذخرا للمسلمين. Let us build a house of God that will truly become a legacy for the Muslims. And then when Abdul Malik ibn Marwan passed away, his son Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik became the Khalifa. He advised him to do the first remodel and massive expansion of Al-Masjid al-Nabawi to mend relations with the people of Medina. And then when Al-Walid passed away, and then Sulaiman, his younger brother, became the Khalifa, he only reigned for about a year and a half, and he was on his deathbed, and Raja ibn Haywa advised him to appoint not his son, but Umar ibn Abdul Aziz radiallahu anhu as his successor, completely, again, changing the world for those 3 years. Brothers and sisters, what I wanted to talk to you about today is expressions of beauty in our own lives, in our own experiences, in our own history, in our faith. And I want you to hold on to this. Don't let the ugly events of the world make you feel like you just need to give up or go into survival mode. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to answer our prayers, to forgive our sins, and to establish us with strength and steadfastness on the path. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be with us in these difficult times. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us repel evil with good, to help us repel ugly with beautiful. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us always be strong on the path, true to our own values. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to gather all of us in the highest level of Jannah with His great and might. Allahumma ameen.